Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. It's Fat Tuesday, Tony. Are you celebrating Mardi Gras?
No. Wardrobe!
You've been to Mardi Gras?
I've never been to Mardi Gras. I've been to New Orleans many times in my life.
Big stuff. Super Bowl?
Yeah, Monday Night Football, Super Bowl.
Final Four?
Sugar Bowl, Final Four. Wasn't New Orleans, didn't Keith Smart, wasn't Keith Smart, didn't he hit the winner? I think that was in New Orleans. Yeah, so I've been there a bunch of times. I always thought that Mardi Gras was a little too much.
A little too raunchy for your taste?
Yeah, for me, a little bit. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, Zion is out, Todd Gurley is struggling, and the Celtics face a big test. But we begin today with what surely is the end of the Los Angeles Lakers this year. They lost to the Clippers last night, and we heard perhaps the most amazing sound of this season, the booing of LeBron James. Yeah, LeBron James at Staples Center. Wilbon, who owns this failure?
That was stunning. That was stunning to hear. I had to do a double check.
Can't believe it.
And go.
Can't believe it.
Rewind on that. They all deserve it. They all deserve it. I mean, nobody gets any sort of special category of blame. There's no GOAT, and I mean GOAT in the way we used to mean GOAT, not G-O-A-T. So you can just do the whole organization roster. You can do all of it. Tony, this is not some tragedy, sports tragedy to me. It's a team that has underperformed, and guess what? History in every sport is littered with them.
I'm going to rank the people who own the failure as far as I'm concerned. LeBron owns the failure. Rich Paul owns the failure. Magic Johnson owns the failure. Rich Paul owns it for being arrogant enough to think that he alone could publicly, that was crazy,
force a trade.
So publicly force New Orleans to give up its best player and send him to the Lakers. I don't think Magic assembled any sort of team that anyone takes seriously, but the most weight of the blame falls on LeBron because LeBron's one of the greatest players of all time. He's still playing. He went to 8 straight finals, which is absolutely amazing. You got to go back to Bill Russell. And he went out there and he's been in finals with marginally talented teams. Talented teams. And
he dragged to a championship.
Mike,
that's why you can go back and say it's one of the great accomplishments in basketball.
I sat here at the beginning of the year. I said they'd win 50.
You said 50.
I said they win 50. I find it very hard to believe that this has happened. I think it's a black mark against the length and breadth of his career. But booing him, booing him is beyond what's reasonable.
At the beginning of this season, actually at the end of last season, beginning of this season, this was all the talk in NBA circles, which I do travel in the spring and summer covering the sport for this network. And one of my colleagues, Tim Bontemps, now writing not longer for the Washington Post for this network, for ESPN. Tim bet me, and he said the Lakers are not going to make the playoffs. And I said, you're on drugs. Let's make it a big bet, a big fat dinner bet in LA. And he said, look, it's too quick. There's not enough people. Maybe if they make a big trade, which didn't happen, there are people like Tim who saw this coming, Tony. Not a small number. So that's what I'm saying. Not everybody's shocked. You and I are shocked.
I am. I'm truly shocked. You have the most glamorous player in basketball on the most glamorous team. I mean, the Celtics may have been better for a longer period of time. Nobody was ever as glamorous or more glamorous than the Lakers. For them not to even make the playoffs, and you can. By the way,
now they're losing to every stumble bum out there.
And I don't want to hear ownership say, "Oh, players weren't dangled out there, in front of New Orleans." Stop. Don't, please.
You're upset though. You're upset the Lakers are.
I am.
I kind of am. I want to see the Lakers in.
I am. Big LeBron fan.
A lot of talk today from California about Luke Walton losing his job with the Lakers, presuming they missed the playoffs. But all is not lost necessarily for Luke. Rick Bucher's reporting that dad, Bill Walton, is working behind the scenes to make sure that his kid could, if he wants, land safely at dad's alma mater, UCLA. Tony, a lot more guys have had success going from the NBA to college than the other way around.
Yes.
And Luke is a Pac-10 alum of great standing. Would it be a good idea for all parties involved?
I think it's necessary to point out Luke Walton did not go to UCLA. He went to Arizona.
Right.
Yeah. Bill Walton went to UCLA.
Famously. Kicked some butt at UCLA.
Championships and all of that. But if Arizona got to the point where they got tired of Sean Miller being named in every single recruiting scandal 2 months, every 2 months down the road.
They could take a broom.
That would be, and that'd be one thing. You know, UCLA is a disaster now. I want to send your words back to you for a second.
What?
They fired Steve Alford about 6 games in, whatever it was.
Yeah.
You sit here very often and you say quite correctly about the University of Nebraska. Are these people crazy? They think that it's due them that they go 11-1 every single year because with Tom Osborne in the 80s, they did. Yeah. John Wooden's not walking in that door.
He's not.
And UCLA people think, well, you know, John Wooden won all the time. We can win all the time with UCLA. No.
Look, I wonder about this because I think Luke Walton is going to be a terrific coach in the NBA, probably somewhere else. I think he could be a good coach in college, Tony. Whether that is UCLA or not is interesting. But there's a dynamic involved in college basketball, which Luke has expressed displeasure for, I think wisely. The whole AAU thing, the recruitment process, the cesspool, you have to do it. And if you don't like it, if you're not predisposed to it, it can make it difficult, Tony. Coaches have expressed that, and it's been not long for them. So maybe Luke will stay in the pros, but I think Luke Walton's a good coach.
Luke Walton did a great job substituting for Steve Kerr.
Yes, he did.
Now, he had a great cast of characters. I thought he was the right hire for the Lakers. I still think that. But LeBron came in.
Yeah.
LeBron's history is, if you're there and now I'm coming in, you're not there long. That's how it works with LeBron. So I think that Luke Walton was doomed. I don't think this is doomed with the Lakers. Okay. I don't think, by the way, I don't think he's defensible. When we're talking about who owns this failure, he owns it too.
I said everyone owns it. Everyone owns it, Tony.
All right, today's story about the dissolution of the Boston Celtics starts with Danny Ainge. On Boston radio yesterday, Ainge essentially excluded Brad Stevens from any blame at all. Ainge said, quote, "He's the least by far of anybody that there is to blame. I know that Brad is putting in the work to do whatever he can to try and help this team and fix this team. He takes ownership in the things he needs to do better. He's the least of all the problems that we have on our team right now," unquote. Wilbon, should Ainge be going so easy on Stevens?
Well, he can afford to go easier because his coach said, blame me. And if you do that, it takes, I'm not going to say it takes the onus away, but it makes it less necessary for the boss to lay a finger on you. And he said Brad Stevens takes the blame. Now, I don't think Brad is necessarily the source of the problem, but much like the Lakers, there's a big roster. There are a lot of people in that ensemble, and all of them deserve some of the blame. Yeah. Some more than others. Who'd you put at the top? You put LeBron, and I'm going to put Kyrie Irving.
That's fair.
At the top of the Celtics list of people to blame.
Fair. I would refer to Kyrie Irving as the always miserable, get me out of here as soon as possible, Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
I read this statement by Danny Ainge as aimed at Kyrie Irving. If he's going to say the coach has nothing to do with it.
Why didn't he recognize it 4 weeks ago and trade Kyrie Irving?
I mean, I think he's blaming the players, but the best player there is Kyrie Irving. Now let's talk about Brad Stevens for a second. He got to the final game and he got to the Final Four twice at Butler when Butler was a mid-major. Okay, he overachieved. He overachieved with the Celtics early on.
Yeah, for a bit.
Pete Carrill at Princeton won when people didn't expect him to win, when he didn't have all the talent. Brad Stevens now has the most talented player he's ever had.
Not a mid-major anymore.
Kyrie Irving is that good. The people, the John Woodens, the Phil Jacksons, the Pat Rileys, who win when everybody's looking because they've got the most talent, that's the hardest job.
Yeah.
That's the hardest
Tony,
job.
this was going to be hard because last year they went in with not a half roster, but they went in with a depleted roster, and they got to Game 7 and probably should have beaten Cleveland and gotten to the finals. They come back and add the two people who were missing,
Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving.
They're less than. Right. And that's why I say...
And nobody seems to be happy. Jaylen Brown called it toxic.
Toxic.
That toxic's a bad word. Toxic.
So what do? They got to get rid of people. When something's toxic, you have to subtract.
You don't expect...
Danny Ainge is going to have to subtract.
You don't expect Kyrie Irving to be there next year, do you?
Not really.
He should go with Kevin Durant.
Oh, here you go.
They should
go to the Knicks.
No, play.
Go to the New York Knicks.
If you don't like the media, go play in the G League. Go play for the Go-Go's.
Well, nobody's
watching.
Nobody's watching the Go-Go's. Have you been to the Go-Go's yet?
I have not.
Okay. Is there a logo of Chuck Brown on the jersey?
Yeah, with a guitar in the back.
We do have an NFL item of note, Tony. Stories are piling up about Todd Gurley and his balky knee. CBS Sports says the Rams are considering stem cell treatment, and The Athletic says recent tests have revealed Gurley has arthritis in that knee. Remember, Gurley was a mysterious non-factor in both the NFC title game and the Super Bowl. So, Tone, what should the Rams do about their star running back?
Okay, so you hear the word stem cell treatment. You don't expect to hear those words. It's just a few years ago that stem cell treatment seemed to me to be experimental surgery. Didn't Kobe Bryant go to Europe? Something happened in Europe.
That was that was blood spinning, right?
Well, I don't know. No, what it reminds me of is Lasse Viren, the great distance runner who used to take out his own blood, and maybe somebody else's blood came back in, or maybe his own blood came back in. No, but that stuff happens. So when you hear this associated with a young running back, a fabulous running back, what it tells you is, if I'm running the Rams, I don't think I can count on Todd Gurley.
When I first heard about this, I thought, my first thought was, well, don't all running backs have some degree of arthritis? So to that end, I texted my man, Dr. Jason Daniels, that sentence, and he said, you're an idiot. People get this in their early 30s, not in 24, in terms of the arthritis part. And this guy, he's around athletes all the time. And so I see that and apologize, because apparently, Tony, this is rare at 24 to sort of have this. It's difficult. You have to treat. Look, here's what is true, though. There are treatments that you and I look at each other and go, what? Like stem cell. And maybe parts of the community are against these type of treatments. Too bad for them. If they're legally available to athletes and others, you treat these things as aggressively as you can, and you hope that you can control this, and Todd Gurley can have at least 4 or 5 more great years.
I thought he was a 6 to 8 year great running back. Let's look at these numbers for a second. If you've forgotten, because during playoff games, he was on the sideline. Yeah. He's got in the last 2 seasons 30 rushing touchdowns. He got 40 overall touchdowns. You know who else has those numbers? Nobody has those numbers. Yeah. So if he is lost to you, if you can't count on him in all games, so if you have to put him in certain games and not other games, or if you have to go stem cell or other. I think they owe him like $45 million, which in the NFL is big time money.
You got to try to get him well. Yeah. Oh, no, in the NFL is not big time money, because they'll just say you cut.
No, that's guaranteed.
Well, they've already.
I think that's guaranteed. Let's take a break.
Nothing.
Coming up, is this Lakers dysfunction as messy up close as it looks from far away? We're going to ask Brian Windhorst.
We'll also ask him whether it's dimming Anthony Davis's desire to play in the purple and gold.
He doesn't appear to have any desire to play now.
He played last night.
I think he went in as a defensive replacement with 1 second to go.
No.
In a story we broke wide open in our first segment, the Lakers are struggling.
Really?
So let's bring in our great friend, PTI NBA insider, Brian Windhorst. Let's start with this. You're there. Does it look as messy up close as it does from our distance here?
2 things that struck me last night. Number one, the complete lack of energy in the building for the biggest game of the season at Staples Center. The crowd didn't even really believe in it. They were kind of going through the motions. Secondly, the complete lack of fight in the Lakers locker room after the game. There was not really anybody saying, oh yeah, no, we can get over this. It's okay. We still got 18 games left. We can go 15-3. LeBron was answering questions about whether he was going to shut it down. They all knew that it's pretty much over. And I just can't believe that on March 5th, actually it was March 4th at this point, that the Lakers are pretty much done, and everybody in the building knew it and everybody in the locker room knew it.
Brian, I'm going to ask you to look a little bit east to Anthony Davis and tell me what is the word? Is he disappointed in what he's seeing in the Lakers? Does all this malaise in L.A., I don't know, dampen his enthusiasm for going out there?
I think if you're a star player like Anthony Davis, when you look at the Lakers, you only see LeBron. I don't think anybody else on the roster you think is going to be there. First off, they're willing to trade almost all of their significant pieces for him. Secondly, you look at those guys, they're all on one-year contracts, or they try to trade them off. I don't think you figure that any of those guys are going to be there. So when you come to L.A., if you're Anthony Davis, you get traded to L.A. or you wait in free agency or however you make it, I think you figure it's me and LeBron and then we'll figure it out. I think you're betting on the brand. I think you're betting on the city. And that's ultimately what LeBron is doing. The problem is this year's free agents generally all have championships. Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, Kawhi Leonard, Kyrie Irving. even if they love Los Angeles, they have the Clippers they can go to. They don't need LeBron to compete for titles. So even though it's a deep free agent class, it's not an ideal free agent class to play with LeBron. And that's something that has become, been revealed itself as these months have gone on.
Well, speaking of people who could be out, Luke Walton is largely the center of today's speculation. If he's out, who is in? And let me say, I even heard the word in the last 24 hours, maybe you've heard this too, Eric Spoelstra. Does that make any sense to you?
I can't see Eric Spoelstra leaving the Heat, but I would never say anything is impossible. I think for a coach who's got a good job right now to come to the Lakers, it would either take an obscene amount of money or it would take the idea that you're going to get an acquisition that's going to make this an instantaneous championship contender. And I don't know if the Lakers are ready to pay a coach $10 or $12 million, which it would probably take. I don't know where that major player is going to come before you would hire the coach. Luke is probably going to take the blame, even though he's probably got a pretty small share of it, and somebody else isn't going to be eager to come in there to accept that blame. I do think there are big names that are out there who are free agents. A guy like Jeff Van Gundy as an example, Ty Lue as an example, Jason Kidd as an example. There are guys with big names who want it, but if you want an established coach who's got rings on his fingers, it's going to be an awful hard sell to get him to LA, I think.
So we'll get you out of here on this, and you're painting a very bleak picture, not just of the present, but of the future with the Lakers. Wilbon and I think it's absolutely stunning and unthinkable. LeBron was booed. I mean, we've never
unconscionable. Take their tickets away from them. Spoiled
a year
brats.
ago, if you told me they were going to boo him, I can't even imagine it. But what are Lakers fans? It doesn't sound like you think they're looking forward to anything great next year.
I think the bet that you're making is on what's behind me, the beautiful weather in Los Angeles and the brand that is the Lakers. You're betting on somebody wanting to be a part of that. By the way, there is somebody. His name's Anthony Davis. It's just complicated to get there. And that's why, starting today, the Lakers maybe need to start looking at their draft pick. There are 3 games in the loss column out of the number 7 pick. They are closer to the number 7 pick than they are to the playoffs at this point. And if you get the number 7 pick, not only is it a higher pick, but you got a 33% chance of being in the top 4. You get the 7th pick or you get the 4th pick, now you can re-engage the Pelicans with a whole other asset that you didn't really have before. And I think that's a factor. Considering Kuzma is hurt, Ball is hurt, Ingram is hurt, Hart is hurt, shut them all down. Let LeBron play with a bunch of G Leaguers, and you take some losses. That's the direction the team needs to go. They need to start thinking about how they're going to get Anthony Davis, how they're going to get another star, even if that is possibly in the draft if they get lucky.
Did you ever think you'd hear LeBron booed? Did you ever think that?
I never thought LeBron James would be talking on March 4th about whether he was going to shut it down for the season.
Whew. Thank you, Brian, as always.
Thank you, Brian.
Guys. Let's take one last break. Still to come, is Duke vulnerable tonight with Zion?
And what should we expect out of James Harden against the Raptors? I don't want to be a spoil sport, but let me just say it's a lot of smog and fog in LA today. So,
yeah, those are the tears of Lakers fans rising from the heat on the sidewalk. That's the smog and fog in LA.